Hi, Misha here, and about 4 years ago, did a video on this gun, the Italian Beretta CX4 Storm PCC, and this is a true PCC, because it is a carbine, it is a true pistol caliber. This is the one I had in that older video. It's been to range a few more times since then, and has continued to prove itself to be reliable and a lot of fun. And this is a bit of a unique one because it's a second generation CX4 Storm, and it's one of those that Classic Firearms sold with a Russian language manual and a 20-inch barrel. And even today, I don't think anyone really knows the story behind these. Anyway, these were once very common in America. The CX4 was introduced as a semi-automatic only in 2003, so still during the assault weapons ban. And it was kind of intended for police officers, firing the same ammunition, taking the same magazines as their duty guns. That's why you can have modules to either take Beretta 92 M9 mags, all of them 15, 20, 30 rounds, or you can have it to take PX4 mags. Your choice. All you have to do to switch between is you just need the correct magwell grip insert, and also you need the correct release here for the magazine. Here it is with the factory 20. Barely sticks out for giving you 20 rounds. But as I said in the old video, it's right with a 30. And even then, for 30 rounds, it doesn't hang out too far. So yeah, these were available. In fact, they were one of the earlier PCCs in America. But then they kind of disappeared. And that's why when these guns appeared at Classic, people really wanted them. The thing was, when you had the American version, it had the 16.5-inch barrel. And it came in a nice case with some tools and accessories. But it was kind of expensive. It always was. When Classic introduced these, they came in a simple cardboard box with two 10-round mags, so not 15. Pretty basic stuff, and again, a foreign language, a Slavic, a Cyrillic manual. But for one thing, they had not been available for a while, and for another, the price was more than fair, and they were brand new guns, even if they might have been new old stock. And they were amongst the first generation 2s. After those sold out, we did see a few more come in 2017-18 from Beretta, but then they dried up again. And as 2020 drained all the guns from everywhere, this was no exception. And in coming into 2021, there are rumors that Beretta has discontinued these, although I don't believe it's official. Let me know in the comments though. Flipping them over, the other side of this pouch, as I said in the early video, this isn't one I actually got directly from Beretta. Even has a little cutout in the bottom for your sling, and it holds two mags. Just kind of neat. Kind of gives it that ready to go carbine appearance. Very slim forearm. You can bolt rails to the sides if you so choose. It is your choice. You have this little rail section that extends out. Back in the day when these were introduced in 2003, it was kind of a neat little feature, but it's only a single slot, and I don't know, it's not the most durable. I would imagine it's for a flashlight. I don't think it would have enough rigidity for a true laser, and I don't think it would be strong enough for a foregrip to retract it in. Set you down. You just press in on your sling swivel, and then it just you know, again, for 2003, the ability to do that was kind of neat, but by modern standards, it's pretty quaint, let's say. Let's pop our mag out just so we have a little easier maneuverability here. Now, this does have a full-length top rail, and it is metal. And we do have fully folding rear sight with the 2 apertures. One, pull it over, and then it can fully fold. I think that's neat, and they fold easily, but they're still secure. And our front post even folds. 1 second, folks. Sometimes doing these, I really do need maybe 4 hands. You know, you'd say 3, but hey, while you're wishing, might as well wish for 4. So we have a folding front post as well, and this is even adjustable. You can screw it up and down to adjust for elevation, and it just folds down out of the way too. And both are protected. Again, very, very well thought out. That's what I said in the old video. I still feel it now. And it might look like a kind of a weird gun, but there's a kind of rubber coating on the top for a simple cheek rest, so you're not just against hard polymer against a seam. And even here, where the seam might be uncomfortable for your grip hand, there's actually a little bit of molding that sticks out to kind of give it a little bit of cushion. I don't know, little touches like that, you know, that's just Beretta for you. And I really like this forearm. It's plenty aggressively checkered without going overboard. It just fits me very well. On this side, of course, we've got the ejection port. And again, for a gun that was released in 2003, it's actually quite lefty friendly. You can change ejection to the left side. You can take your handle and easily put it on the other side. You can reverse your mag release, but the only thing you cannot is your bolt release here. And I said this in before as well, but even years later, I love the placement of this release. It just hits my thumb up there like that. It's just right in the right spot. It's easy to hit, but not where you're going to do it accidentally. And with that, let's talk about what makes this a Gen 2. One thing, there's this little shelf now where the safety is to kind of keep it from being bumped. They also changed the texture, the patterning on the forearm just a wee bit. But the main deal that people are going to care about is the trigger. The original trigger was not great. It's not a competition trigger even now, but I swear it's half the pull weight of an original one. Maybe I just got lucky and I got one that has a nice trigger, but that's probably the biggest advantage for the newer guns. Again, it's nice to have a couple of mags on board. I can get them in here without embarrassing myself. Helps if I don't get a sling in the way, huh? They really do slide in very easily, and they eject out with plenty of force. So I know it looks weird. It's like the ARX 100. But looks aside, the ergonomics are just really dead on for me, at least. Weight-wise, it's not the lightest in the world, but it's not a tank either. It's about 5.5 pounds. Very respectable for a solid filling gun. It has enough weight that you don't worry about breaking it, but it's not so heavy that it's a burden. So what about this long barrel and that whole story? Beretta Storm. Held open. Here are the facts surrounding this interesting variant. Like I said, the standard US version has a 16.6-inch barrel. This has what we usually just call a 20-inch barrel. It's actually more like 19.6, 19.7, about 500 millimeters. It also came with 2 10-round mags. It came in a simple cardboard box. It came with a Russian language, Cyrillic alphabet, owner's operator's manual. You got this mag loader here. Simple, but usable. You got a cleaning kit. And interestingly, these were not imported, sold to Classic Firearms by Beretta USA. Rather, they came from PW Arms, who typically does a lot with surplus. And as I said, of course, it's a newer make. It's a Generation 2 style gun. On Classic Firearms website, they said that these were, quote, foreign language manuals, or some foreign language, is kind of funny. And then they said these were a military or law enforcement contract overrun, excuse me. That is what Classic Firearms said. And there ends what are factually known about these guns. But there was a lot of speculation, as you know. Beretta Storm. Held open. So were these really Russian contract overrun guns? Military? No way. Police. Well, it has to be said that the CX4, after its introduction, has gained a decent following amongst police users in North America and in Italy. It allowed them to operate a carbine, simple, effective, durable, still light, and still relatively affordable. And firing a pistol cartridge meant that, you didn't have as much risk of overpenetration, that kind of thing. There are, again, several North American police departments that have used these. In fact, after this batch of guns, which were new, Classic Firearms later had a batch of used CX4s that took the PX4 mags. And yeah, they were North American police trade-ins. They had the 16.5-inch barrel. So it is plausible that a Russian police agency might want to adopt these, especially if they issued Berettas. There's also been some military use. In fact, there's a whole specific model known as the MX4. Now, it's interesting, the semi-automatic only, longer barrel CX4 came out long before the select fire short barrel MX4. The MX4 had about a 12.5-inch barrel. In the original video, I was considering chopping this barrel down and making a MX4 clone out of it, because it does have, again, the selector kind of tab and everything. I don't know, it was an idea I had at the time. And the Italian Navy has purchased a small number of MX4s, as has a few other militaries, but by a long shot, the biggest single user is the Border Guard, the Border Security Agency of India. In 2011, they received their first 17,000, or at least they started to receive them, MX4s. They got another 17,000 in the year or so after. Even though they reported a few problems with corrosion and bores, Beretta said it was because they were using substandard ammo. I tend to kind of believe Beretta for the simple fact that after the first 34,000, India turned right around and ordered 34,000 more. So if they were that unhappy, they probably wouldn't have sunk that much into them. So now they operate about 68,500 of these. It's also worth pointing out of the 34,000, they only requested that Beretta replace like 250. That's not a crazy return rate. It's probably more than Beretta wanted, but that happens in manufacturing. Anyway, I digress. My point was, these definitely have military and police use. I mean, heck, all things told, over 70,000, which is more than some assault rifles in the world. Kind of neat, and I'm glad that it got a little love. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that a Russian police department might have wanted one. At least it's a police-grade firearm. But is that really what happened? Probably not. But it's a neat story. Yeah, let's grab a couple of Russian guns. Here's my Makarov PMM, the double stacker. My point is here, a lot of police agencies, especially go back a few years or decades, they still had old Soviet guns. They were the militia, they kind of got what was left over. So they would have been happy just to get a double stack Makarov. Even if they wanted to go to a more modern 9x19 gun, Russia makes plenty of those. So I don't know, and I very well could be wrong. I'm not up on what different Russian militias, police issue, but I don't hear them having a lot of Berettas. And even when they want a long arm, they tend to go for a shotgun, like this here, Sega. This is an SGL-12. Actually, it's called a Sega LE edition because of the folding stock and, well, slightly extended barrel for the US market, but there's a longer barrel version than this too. They like shotguns. They either do the 12 gauge or they do the 410, which they call the Cossack. I'm not saying they might not want a little carbine, but it doesn't quite gel, you know what I mean? And to be fair, Classic didn't claim hard and fast, and it's Classic anyway, so, you know, whatever. But I do think these were a Russian contract for a few reasons. And that's also why I ended up not chopping the barrel down and kind of just leaving it as is. Most likely, these were a civilian or hunting competition team, or at most a private security contract. A few reasons I say that. One, they shipped with 10-round mags. Now this Makarov has a 12-rounder. This would not be legal, well, in Russia for a civilian. In Russia, civilians do have the right to own guns, but they're severely curtailed. We can do a whole video on Russian gun legislation if you like, but aside from the fact that handguns are essentially not allowed without a permit, and getting a permit is not impossible, there is a pretty strict capacity limit of 10 rounds in Russia for civilians. Want more than that? Essentially join the military. On the other hand, you can own a gun as young as 16 in Russia if you can prove a need, and 18 tends to be the minimum age although 21 you can get a rifle. Sorry, I digress. So the fact that these come with 10-round mags kind of shows a conformance to the civilian law. Another one, of course, is the barrel. This is a 500mm barrel. Now, Beretta used to make these for Canada, because, you know, in Canada you needed a barrel over 18 inches, not to be restricted. And the CX4 was pretty popular in Canada, but unfortunately last year, 2020, they were put on their boy, that is a tongue tire. They were put on the prohibited list. Say that 3 times fast. So yeah, the longer barrel was already good for Canada, but it's also good for Russia because, and this is where it gets a little complicated, you kind of have an either-or situation where the gun needs to have a barrel over 500mm and an overall length of 800mm, either or. But then, you know, you go over to Russia, you can see Segas, shotguns, and also even rifles with these folding stocks. And when the stock is folded, it is under 800mm. What's going on there? Well, in Russia, when you have a folded stock, you can fold it, but you can only fold it thanks to this handy-dandy mechanism when your safety is on. When the safety's down, there's a small block back here that keeps your stock from folding. So you can make it shorter than 800mm, but if you do, the gun is disabled. Kind of an interesting thing. So this gun would be legal. It's the regular CX4 is a hair under 30 inches. With the longer barrel, it is over the required 800mm. And that's about 32 inches, a little less than 32. So this is a legal gun for Russian civilian ownership, or maybe a satellite nation. Just because the manual's in Russian doesn't necessarily mean it was going to Russia. After all, Russia had hegemony over that part of the world for 70, 80 years. Longer if you count the Tsarist era. But most of those nations don't have gun rights at all. So it's possible it was for something else, but it was probably just for the Russian civilian sporting market. And there is quite a bit of sport shooting there. But it's a little funny to have a 9mm gun. The big draw of this is the fact that they do use common mags. Well, that's kind of lost in Russia because people don't really own handguns there. On the other hand, since they can't own 9mm handguns, I would say that having a 9mm carbine might be the next best thing. Great for closer self-defense. By the way, Russians also have the right to defend themselves, but that does get a little murky. So yeah, honestly, I think it is a Russian contract that was probably canceled, or they were simply contract overruns, one or the other. Because around this time, when these came in, 2016, 2017, Russian law for civilian ownership was tightened up. When I was there back between 2004 and 2008, it was a little more relaxed. But then after about 2012, I believe it was, 2014, they started kind of tightening up a few things. They can still own rifle bores and shotguns, but yeah. So I just wonder if maybe these were no longer legal, or if it just wasn't worth it. And keep in mind too, this was after Crimea. Maybe Italy, Beretta just didn't want to deal with them. You never know. But I do think it's neat that we did get the Russian variant of a Beretta CX4. The Russian variant of an Italian gun. And anyway, these were hard to get at the time. These were brand new, and they were cheaper than what you could even find the American ones for, if you could even find them, which you couldn't. Anyway. Beretta Storm. Safety, I presume.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've kept this gun over the years, even throughout some of the panics, and a few times I've sold off guns. It's just not one I really want to get rid of. The first time I handled one of these in person was probably 2004. It might have been early 2005. I remember, I think it was still during the tail end of the assault weapons ban, and I just thought it was interesting, even back then. And that's really before the PCC craze even hit. And it's always fit me so well. Your mileage will probably vary. I like the placement of the safety, especially turning it off is easy to do. I like the handle. The weight and balance is just well done for me. And my major complaint with the original ones, the trigger, was at least 75% eliminated with the newer variants here. Still not great, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't need to be a mil LE duty, even just self-defense gun. We've run a good number of rounds through it, and it's ate some really crappy aluminum cased ammo that very few other guns would. It'll do 115, 124, 147 grain. And then, as I said years ago, I thought about cutting it down and threading it to put my suppressor on it. But I also thought about was cutting it down and putting in like an AKML long birdcage on. So still keeping it at 16 inches overall, but those flash hiders add nearly 3 inches. I thought, well, that'll look a lot like the MX4, and I won't have to even register it as an SBR. But then I got to thinking, I've got a lot of compact guns. This gun will never be the tiniest or the lightest because it doesn't have a folding stock. Basically, the long barrel kind of grew on me, and it's distinctive, it's unique. There just aren't many in this country. Now, I don't think it makes it worth more. I don't think it makes it... it's special to me because it's connection to Russia and my connection to Russia, but that's a personal thing. But there are fewer of these in the country compared with the 16.5-inch versions, that's for sure. And I just thought cutting the barrel down, I would regret it. I know you don't get any extra velocity, really, with 9mm. Anything past 10 inches, really even 8 inches, 8.5 at the most, you're not really gaining anything. If anything, you might start to lose it at 20 inches. But I don't think it honestly looks bad either, because of the way the rest of the gun, it kind of matches the forearm. At least that's how aesthetics appear to a blind guy. It's really one of my favorites. And one that I just kind of revisit every few months and take to the range. What do you think? Do you have a gun like that? I mean, if it's not a CX4, is there a gun that, you don't really have any great reason to love, but you just do? It's kind of what it is for me. And if you don't like it, I understand completely. It's not everyone's cup of tea. But between being a Beretta, being a pistol caliber, and having a connection to Russia, be it police, probably not, civilian, probably. It is what it is, and they don't seem to be coming into the country in any great numbers over the last decade. So, I hope they really aren't discontinued, but if someone verified they were, it wouldn't shock me at all. Anyway, I appreciate you hanging out with me, just kind of reminiscing. If you have any questions or comments, please do post them. As always, if you could, like, share, and subscribe. And please, if you can, check out the link to the Patreon page. This is Misha, and me and the Beretters will catch you very soon next time.